Hello chess friends and welcome to Zarov's chess channel and welcome to my best chess games of all time series. So in this series we're following the best chess games that have been ever played in chess history, and today I wanted to show you really, well, it's one of the most important moments in chess history, and it was the World Championship match between Anatoly Karpov against Garry Kasparov back in 1985 in Moscow. So the problem about this match game was that Garry Kasparov and Karpov already played their match game in 1984, and it was this bad rule. I think it was this Bobby Fischer's rule in chess, which said that the world champion will be the first player who gets 6 wins. So we had now two great players like Karpov and Kasparov who played now for over 6 months their match game in 1984, and the result was 5-3, 5-3 wins for Anatoly Karpov. And this will be still this mystery in chess history, why the FIDE decided to abort this world championship match, although it ended it lasted for 6 months, as I said. But I still think that Anatoly Karpov wasn't satisfied with this decision, that the FIDE aborted the match game. And as I said, then we had this rematch in 1985 in which we had new rules, new general rules how to win the world championship, because Anatoly Karpov and Kasparov played 24 games, and in order to win the world championship, Garry Kasparov had to win the match game. So it means if the result would be equal, then Anatoly Karpov would still be the world champion in chess, because the challenger here in this particular situation, Garry Kasparov, didn't win the match game, which is also a bad rule. I think I like this rule now, how the world championship is played, like we saw in this world championship match between Magnus Carlsen and Fabiano Caruana, in which they played a draw in the match game. But then we have this other games like the rapid games and, for instance, this Armageddon games, and then the winner simply has to win the world championship. I like simply this rule. I didn't like also this Fischer's rule of the 6 wins. Maybe it worked for Fischer because Fischer was crushing everyone, but I think when you have this two great players like Garry Kasparov and Karpov, this rule doesn't work at all. So as said, this was the decisive game of this World Championship match in 1985, in which before this round 24, Garry Kasparov was leading 1 full point ahead of Anatoly Karpov. So in the last round with the white pieces, Anatoly Karpov had to win the game. Anatoly Karpov had to play an aggressive game against the great tactician Kasparov. So we had really a great battle between the best tactician and between the best positional player Anatoly Karpov, and be prepared. This is really a beauty in chess, and I really think that this was maybe the most important moment in chess history. So let's see the game. We have here e4 by Anatoly Karpov. We have c5 by Garry Kasparov, knight to f3. After d6 we have the most often played lines, which can transpose into neither Chevening system, Dragon Sicilian. It's the most flexible move in this Sicilian openings. We have d4 played by Karpov, c takes d, knight takes d, knight to f6, attacking the e4, and now knight to c3. Here we have a6, which is the most often line if you want to prepare, for instance, a Chevening system, or if you want to prepare maybe a Najdorf, even with the move e5 immediately. In the game, bishop to e2 was played, and now we have e6. Castling, bishop to e7, now f4, which was an aggressive move immediately by Anatoly Karpov. So you see, Anatoly Karpov had to try here for some great pawn breakthroughs, for some active plays. In the game, castling played by Kasparov, and now we have king to h1. This is a nice positional idea of white. Here Anatoly Karpov is trying to play the move bishop to e3, and if this bishop gets challenged with the knight on g4, then you have a good square to hide your bishop, and you're staying with your bishops on very good diagonals. So it means this bishop on g1 would be still aiming on a very active diagonal, and this bishop on e2 is a good piece anyway, so it aims on both of the sides on the board. So this is a nice positional idea by Karpov. Here we have queen to c7. It seems now that e5 make some progress because you're kicking away the knight on d4, but it wouldn't be a good line, I think, for Garry Kasparov, because you have simply knight to f5, and this knight is really a nice outpost knight, and that's why black has to basically take out the knight with bishop takes f5. We have e takes f5, and for instance, if you try knight to c6, we can try g4. So you see, we have now sort of a pawn majority attack against black's king with the bishop pair on the board. I think that white has a favorable game here, so that's why if you, for instance, try something like e takes f4, bishop takes f4, the bishop comes simply actively into the game, and now it's time simply to push and open the position in front of black's king. Still, you can try bishop to f3 because you don't have this light square problems. Black has lost his light square bishop, so that's why it wouldn't be a problem to handle this position from this defensive point of view, from white's perspective, of course. In the game, as said, queen to c7 was played. We have a4, also common idea. It's not allowing Garry Kasparov to make some progress on the queen side with the move b5, and there is a good thing about this move. There is also one bad thing about this move. The good thing is, as I said, this restriction of this potential b5 move, but on the other hand, after a potential knight to c6, you're leaving also some spaces behind. So this knight on b4, for instance, couldn't be challenged, and after that with the move a3. So in the game, knight to c6 was played, preparing this potential knight to b4 idea. We have bishop to e3, and now simply rook to e8. There is maybe a better move for Kasparov. It's the move rook to d8. For instance, if the position opens in the center, then this rook could be really dangerous against white's queen. The white queen would then go maybe to e1, but then after something like knight to b4, still this c2 would be a target, and white could try maybe some queen to g3 or queen to h4 ideas in order to make some kind of activity against black's king. So in the game, rook to e8, so not rook to d8 was played, and Karpov simply improved the position of the bishop. Bishop to f3, staying on two very active diagonals, and with the preparation to play the move g4, again trying to create this very, very annoying pawn storm with these three pawns here on the king side, maybe restrict somehow this knight's ability to play, kick it away on d7, and then if the knight, of course, leaves the defense of this king, then you wouldn't have any minor piece defenders in front of your king. So this is now a good idea here by Anatoly Karpov. King to rook to b8. We have queen to d2. The idea is, of course, to get some kind of a grip here on dark squares, and still you have now finally finished your development. So it means you have removed the queen from the first rank, you have connected the rooks, which is a very important stage in a chess game. Bishop to d7, now knight to b3, which is a good move here by Karpov, releasing a little bit the pressure in the center. We want to play freely with our queen, maybe to go to f2, as I said, g3, queen to d3. So we don't want this queen to be a defensive piece and to defend this knight on d4. And still you cannot immediately push this pawn on b5 because you'll open the position here. Simply this knight would be then very dangerous on the queen side, and that's why in the game b6 was played by Garry Kasparov, and now we have finally this move g4. Look at this position. Black has only some pawns on the 6th rank. Black hasn't participated in the battle on the 5th rank. On the other hand, here Karpov has already 4 of his pawns on the 4th rank, so white has obviously this advantage in space. But this setup, this chevening setup that Garry Kasparov has played is sort of a restriction setup, because this, for instance, these two central pawns are restricting this very important central squares on the board. It's c5, d5, e5, and f5 square. So in order to make something happen, white always needs to push some pawns, and then when you push pawns, then you have shown your cards basically in chess. In the game now, Garry Kasparov finds a very nice defensive move. He plays the move bishop to c8 because he knew that Karpov would go for this move knight to g5, attacking the knight on f6. But now we have at least this very important square of this knight. It's the square d7, and still with this bishop to c8 we can now change the direction a little bit, play the move bishop to b7, and because White has already played the move g4, this bishop would be very dangerous against White's king. So if the position opens, we could get rid maybe of this very important defender in front of White's king, and it's of course the bishop on f3. So in the game queen to f2, see how Karpov plays a very nice opening line, playing very actively with his pieces, keeping the position compact. The pieces are really glued together, and still he has this advantage in space. We have already made some progress with the move g5, and now bishop to f8, played by Kasparov. Now this rook is on a sort of open file again. If the position clears in the center, then this rook would occupy maybe the only file on the board, which is a very important move. And still we can try this defensive setup to play g6 and then bishop to g7, getting our bishops on the most active diagonals. It means this one, and for the light square bishop, this one. So this bishop would be aiming like a really nice cross here, and that's why it was also a great positional move here by Garry Kasparov. Bishop to g2, we have bishop to b7, and now rook to the d1. And this was maybe a slightly inaccuracy by Karpov, maybe not the best line. Maybe f5 immediately is a good thing, making some progress. Here I think you can try maybe from black's perspective knight to e5, but now bishop to d4 can be a good idea, and now rook to c8. Now simply f takes e6. For instance, it seems that f6 is a great move which opens the position, but it would be really a bad move because we have g takes f6, and now king to h8. Not a problem, we can hide with our king, maybe try to with some pawn breakthroughs here on d5, and maybe liberate the bishop somewhere and get our rook here on the g file, competing on the g file, because it's also hard for white now to activate some pieces in order to attack black's king. The knights are a little bit far away from the action. They are not attacking, they're not participating in the attack of black's king. So white would be forced to open the position with the move f takes e6, and now after f takes e6, maybe here queen to g3 or queen to h4 would be a good idea, trying to regroup a little bit and maybe try even bishop to h3 ideas in order to attack this weak e6 pawn. But okay, rook to d1 was played by Karpov, probably attacking this d6 weakness. When you play this setup, this Chevening setup that Kasparov has played here, there are always these two targets for white. These are the weak pawns in black's position. It's the weak b6 pawn and this weak d6 pawn. They're vulnerable to our attacks, but so far Kasparov handled this situation very good. He played simply nice positional play, simply calm game. As I said, in this game he needed only a draw in order to become the world's youngest world champion in chess. So in the game g6 by Kasparov, trying to get this bishop, as I said, on this very active diagonal. Bishop to c1, which is a good move by Karpov, preparing some rook to d3, rook to h3 ideas. You see, Karpov didn't rush into this attack. He played first this improvements of the pieces, and now he's trying this very annoying rook lift and attacking here this h7 weakness that is also present in the position. So rook to c8, we have rook to d3, and now knight to b4. Very important move by Kasparov, and I mentioned this move, as I said, here white has already played the move a4, but it leaves also some spaces behind because you have now the opportunity to cement the knight on a very active square. In order to kick it away with the move c3, you lose simply too many tempos, and still the black's knight can retreat again to c6. So you need, for instance, 2-3 moves, and if you know, chess is all about tempos, so you don't want to lose any in order just to attack this knight. And here after knight to b4, finally we have rook to h3, the main idea that Karpov has prepared here. Bishop to g7, and now bishop to e3. Rook to e7. This was the defensive move that Garry Kasparov has played. It was a moment in which Garry Karpov, after the move rook to h3 and bishop to e3, left a little bit the board. He tried to walk, he tried to not think so much about the position, maybe to relax a little bit. So in this particular moment, he didn't sit at his chair. He left Kasparov to think about this move, and here Kasparov played the move rook to e7. And Garry Kasparov, in one of his interviews, mentioned that he had to really calculate this move. He had to really make something out of it, because he saw, of course, this potential threats on this h file. He saw also his problems around this d6. He has also some problems with the move with this pawn on b6. He has still problems with the potential f5 move. So he found really one of the best defensive moves in chess history, because now this rook on e7 basically holds everything. The potential e6 f5 move is not so dangerous anymore, because we can trade off simply some pawns, and you have a good defensive setup against your f7 weakness. If the position, for instance, clears on the f file by taking some pawns, you see this was a very important battery that Anatoly Karpov has prepared here. So now this rook to e7, really the defensive move, the best defensive move that Garry Kasparov has to play in order to make something happen in this game. Here we have king to g1 by Karpov, getting the king basically out of this like square mess, because if the position again clears, then the king could be also endangered on like squares. And now rook from c to e8. Now Garry Kasparov plays really a compact defensive setup, tries to have these pieces glued together. In the game, rook to d1 was played, and now f5 played by Kasparov. So this is a very important defensive move. Also, it leaves, of course, the opportunity Karpov to recapture here the pawn with this en passant rule. Of course, g takes f6 was played, and we have knight takes f6. But still, now this attack of Karpov is not so clear anymore. If we evaluate the position now, the rook is still a little bit endangered here. It doesn't have such a great support. Okay, queen to h4 is not so dangerous, because we can try maybe h6 immediately. And as I said, if you try some f5 moves, then black can always trade off this like square bishops, and then you have to maybe recapture with your king, and then you could have some troubles around the square d4. And this was now really the critical moment, because after the move knight to f6, Garry Kasparov left also here this b6 pawn hanging, sacrificing a pawn. And let's see what Anatoly Karpov did here. He played the move rook to g3, which is a good idea. Okay, it has some attacking possibilities if, as I said, the g file opens here. Then we could play maybe some bishop to h6 ideas. But this was now really the first mistake that Anatoly Karpov has played here, because bishop takes b6 was really the best move. And in the post, what probably Anatoly Karpov was scared of is this move knight to g4, attacking the queen. But you can simply take out the queen. It's not a problem. After bishop takes c7, we have knight takes f2. We can simply take bishop takes d6. Here knight takes d1, attacking the knight. For instance, if you take here this rook on h3, we can simply play bishop takes h3, and you see, if you try here to play rook to d7 in order to attack the bishop, then we have knight to c5. It's very dangerous. So that's why this wouldn't be a bad line for white. It's a better line for white. White will make some progress with this bishop's activity, with its knight activity, or in this position. Here you don't have to take out this rook on h3. You can also take out the knight on d1. It's not a problem, because we can simply take out the rook on e7 after knight takes c3, b takes c3, attacking the knight. And if you take here knight takes c2, we can simply go, I think bishop to d6 is perfectly fine, with the opportunity to push the pawn on e5 and simply cement the position again, get really a compact position. White is a pawn up. which is not such a small thing, I think, in this particular position. But as I said, Karpov didn't take out the bishop on b6. He played the move rook to g3, which was really a mistake in the game. It's not this kind of mistakes which lose immediately, but you see how sharp Garry Kasparov was in chess. He finds really this very aggressive moves. He played the move first rook to f7. Very important move. Again, I'm pointing out, it's if something clears here on the f file, then the queen could be endangered. And now finally bishop takes b6, but it's a little bit too late now. It's a whole new story, because after queen to b8 we have bishop to e3. Karpov tries to get back, and here we have the move knight to h5. And the problem is, if you for instance play rook to h3, we can again try knight to f6 with the preparation to play the move knight to g4, and again playing the fork on the queen and the bishop. So all white can hope here for is a draw, because here we could have some perpetual attacks on the rook, and of course it's not enough here for Karpov to win the game. So that's why after the move knight to h5 we have rook to g4, and here Kasparov played again knight to f6, and now rook to h4. And you can pause the video and try to find the Kasparov move that of course Kasparov played. That's why he was really one of the best chess players in history. He finds this move in order to really make something happen here, and he played the move g5, sacrificing another pawn. So far Kasparov has lost his b6 pawn, but now g5, you have to take out the pawn. We have f takes g5, and now knight to g5, g4 with an attack on the queen. So you have to make the move queen to d2, knight takes e3. We have queen takes e3, and now if we evaluate the position, black is continuing the game with the bishop pair in a very open position. The only defender that white has in front of the king is the bishop on g2. So now this game is getting very, very dangerous for white. Here knight takes c2, great combination by Kasparov. Queen to b6, and of course bishop to a8, trying to trade off the queens, because the only active piece now that Karpov has on the board is the queen. And here probably again Karpov should have gone and traded off the queens, because but the problem is that, as I said, Karpov doesn't need a draw here. He has to win the game, and he played the move rook takes d6, trying to make some kind of progress. But basically the best way is here really to take out the queen. Queen takes b8, and after something like rook takes b8, here is a very, very complicated line with bishop to h3, attacking here this pawn on e6. And maybe again Karpov was a little bit scared about this potential tactical moves, because now rook takes b3 is the possibility, but now you can simply take bishop takes e6, and bishop takes d4 would be the best continuation for black. After king to h1 we have rook takes b2, and now rook to f1, pinning the rook further, and here bishop takes c3, rook takes f2, f7, but now Kasparov has a good defensive piece. He can play the move knight to d4, attacking the bishop, so no discovered attacks by the bishops are possible because the bishop is endangered. And you could try maybe bishop to h7. This is a very important check, but now simply knight takes e6, and now rook takes a8. And this game would lead probably into a draw. White has two rooks for white has one rook for two pieces. Maybe again Karpov saw all of that, but it wasn't enough for him to win the game, and he tried really to play much more active. As I said, after this move bishop to a8, Karpov didn't take the queen. He played the move rook takes d6, but it's again too late a little bit, because we have simply rook to b7, and now queen takes a6. Now we have rook takes b3. You lost the piece. Now you see how Karpov got some problems on the b file. We have rook takes e6, now rook takes b2, and now queen to c4. Here in this position it's already a winning position for black, because okay, you're threatening some discovered checks by the queen, but Kasparov simply solves the problem with the move king to h8. We have e5, and now queen to a7. this is basically game over because you have to play king to h1, bishop takes g2, king takes g2, and now knight takes d4. In this position, Anatoly Karpov resigned. In the next move, you lose the rook, you have this discover check, and it was game over. In this particular moment, Garry Kasparov became the world's youngest world champion in chess. I think it still deserved because he was playing simply slightly better chess than Anatoly Karpov, but I also like Anatoly Karpov. They're really two of my favorite chess players in history. Their match game was really a legendary one and really deserves to be written in chess history books. This was one of the most important chess moments, and I really would love that you maybe read some more articles about this game, about this match game, about their opening preparation, about their playing style, which is really an incredible thing. And this was something that you should know when we talk about chess. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this game. I enjoyed it really a lot. I've watched this game now many times, and if you want to see some other best chess games of all time, check out my other chess games from the series. Here's the link. And you can also watch my other commentary chess games played by computers by Alpha Zero, Lila Zero, and many more. And you can also subscribe to my channel if you like this content. Thanks you for watching, guys, and chess is the best, of course.